What's going on, everybody? This is Chris from AppSumo, and today I am very, very, very excited to be talking to Sean Croxton. So if you guys have not come across Sean's work before, let me give you a quick background on him. So Sean is the podcast host, entrepreneur, and prosperity teacher. For 7 years, Sean was the host of Underground Wellness Radio, one of the internet's most popular health podcasts. Then in 2015, he moved on from holistic health and created the Quote of the Day Show, the internet's #1 daily motivational podcast. He is also the creator of Money Mind Academy, an 8-week course that will completely change your relationship with money. Sean, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. Good to be here, man.
Of course. So as I was saying to you before, basically, Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans. I would absolutely say I've been one of your 1,000 True Fans for about a decade. The impact you had on me and my life and my career really cannot be understated. And we were talking a bit where I think the biggest thing, as we can see demonstrated behind you, is reading. And when I came across you sophomore year in college, basically you were somebody on YouTube who was talking about all these books you're reading and all the things you've learned, particularly about health. But yeah, I would love to kind of talk about where that came from for you, like where you crossed that threshold, where reading became a part of your life.
That is really all of my parents' fault.
Okay.
My parents, they would literally buy me books before I could even read. It was just a big deal in our family. My mom would take us to the bookstore. I still love going to the bookstore. She would take us to the library. They would buy me books about different presidents, different slavery, Abraham Lincoln, the steam engine, inventions, Thomas Edison, all of these things. And I just really grew to be a big lover of reading. And I remember, so funny, Pizza Hut, as a matter of fact, They had this program called Book It. And so when you read a book, you actually got a star or something in class. And when you got so many stars, you got to take a little coupon to Pizza Hut. Maybe it was Round Table Pizza. It might have been Round Table Pizza. And you would go and you would get yourself a free personal size pan pizza. And I just remember I got lots of pan pizzas because I was just reading so many books. And it's just something that I really love to do. Like, I like watching TV and stuff, but nowhere near as much as I love reading books. I just have a thirst for knowledge. Every time I read a book, there's always some question in that book where I'm like, oh my God, I got to learn about that. And it's just one thing to another and to another and to another. Now I've got probably over 1,000 books in my home. And what I like to do is just teach people the stuff that I learned about. So it's fun.
Were there particular books that stood out when you were younger?
You know what? The books that really stood out when I was younger were mostly books about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, Gentleman's Superstar, The Jordan Rules, I remember. There's probably some other ones in there I just can't remember right now. But when I was in elementary school, most of my book reports were about Michael Jordan books. He was very influential in my life because I'm a huge basketball fan. I was a huge basketball fan back then. And there was something about Michael Jordan's competitive nature and his obsession with basketball that becoming better and better and better. And I think that learning about him and reading about his life and how he did things became very influential on me through reading about him. But those are the only two books that really stand out from my earlier years. Dennis Rodman's book, his first book was pretty cool. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. Did you have siblings, or was this something that you and your friends all did, or were you kind of the outlier who was reading?
Oh, I was always the outlier that I was reading. Yeah. My brother, I have an older brother, Paul. He's 5 years older than me. He's not a big reader. I remember being in college, being like in the dorm, sitting down there in our study lounge area, and people would come in and be like, Sean, what are you doing? Like, I'm reading a book. And it would be like a book about the O.J. Simpson case by Robert Shapiro. And they'd be like, is that for class? I'm like, no. They're like, why are you reading it? Because I just like reading. And people found that to be a little bit weird. One thing that we tend to do is we associate reading with school. Like, it's just school. And it actually kind of teaches us to not like reading because most of the stuff they give us to read in school is boring. So we grow this association. We actually just, our brain categorizes books as boring stuff that we really don't want to do. And so I'm glad that I became a fan of reading before school put that impression in me, categorized books that way. And so, yeah, I continue to do it now. I read every day for at least a couple of hours. It's usually the first thing I do. I get in the hot tub for an hour and I read, and I just feel like, I got more reading in today than most people did all week. And it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in the opposite camp where school just made me think like reading is just school and school's not fun. So why would you read? And it wasn't until really, seeing you with health on YouTube and all of that and being like, oh, books are actually like a vehicle for learning things that you didn't know that you want to know. And like you're saying with people, that association, I've been in multiple times in a coffee shop where like a mother has come over and been like, hey, like, what are you studying for? And it's like, I'm not studying. It's just, well, I guess I'm studying in a sense, but it's not for school. Very odd. But what led you into health? Was it through books or was it through friends, or where did that come into it?
I think health got instilled in me through my mom. She used to take us out jogging and stuff. She ate well. She was very physically active during our younger years. And so I think that's where I first got it. And then I think at the end of 8th grade, I started to work out. Started doing push-ups. I remember we had an 8th grade kind of like a getaway, I think we went to like a water park or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to be in shape for this thing. I don't know why that was in my head so early. Actually, you know what? I think this was high school. This is like toward the end of high school. I got, yeah, that's right. I got in really good shape and I just became obsessed with like fitness magazines and obsessed with protein powders and what to eat and what not to eat and how can I make my body look this way. I remember those old cartoons. I think it was an advertisement. Maybe it was Charles Atlas. I can't remember, but it was like the little scrawny guy who got sand kicked in his face at the beach. And then he was like, oh, I'm going to get in shape now. And so he started lifting weights and started eating well. And then he became this like Mr. Universe guy. And I wanted to be that guy. And so I got very, very invested in health. I went to San Diego State for school. For some reason, didn't have a major for a few years. I just never really committed to health. Eventually, I decided to study kinesiology with an emphasis in fitness, nutrition, and health. And and as you probably know, a lot of what I learned in school was the complete opposite of what actually makes people healthy. And when I got out of school, I started learning about the other side of it. And that's when I decided to bring that message to YouTube.
And you became a personal trainer out of school before YouTube, is that right?
Yeah, it's so funny because I went to school thinking I'm going to get this kinesiology degree so I can become a personal trainer, not knowing that I could have just taken like a weekend workshop to become a personal trainer. I don't know why that
4 years of it.
Yeah, I don't know why it never clicked to me, but so I became a personal trainer literally right after I graduated. I had already had a job, kind of like a supervisor job at the on-campus gym. And then they actually got me certified because they had a certification that came through the gym once every quarter or something like that. Me certified, and I became a personal trainer there. And I did that for the next 7-8 years.
Wow. And then during that, you ended up going to YouTube or figuring out, like reading certain things where you're like, I didn't learn the right things, or there's a different way to go about this, or maybe we're actually making people sicker. Where did that come?
Well, the first couple of years of training, I was thinking to myself, why do my clients keep on gaining weight? Why aren't they losing any weight? And I would blame it on them because I worked on a college campus. And I was like, oh, these students, they're just partying on the weekends, drinking, doing whatever, completely canceling out their cardio. And then at some point I stumbled upon like Paul Chek and Dr. Mercola and Lauren Cordain, the paleo diet. And it just made so much sense to me. And the only people that I can talk about that with were my clients, of course, as well as the professors that I trained. However, they had all been kind of like me, brainwashed to believe that fat is bad for you and you should eat all these box foods and you should, go low fat and high carb and all of these things. And so the only place that I can find, and fortunately it had just been invented back in 2006, gosh, I'm a dinosaur, is YouTube. And, one day I was actually following, because I used to be very terrible with dating, I was following Neil Strauss. And Neil Strauss had this 30-day thing on how to get a date. And he was using YouTube to deliver like our next assignments. And I was like, what is this YouTube thing? And I was thinking that it was like this big deal and you had to like pay money for it and whatnot, because that's what you had to do to get your message out back then, was to pay, be on TV and whatnot. And I found out that it was free. And I remember one day I was like, I'm going to start making YouTube videos. And so I called myself the food dude. And I remember I had this, I think it was, might have been a 5-pound model of fat and a 5-pound model of muscle. And I just like talked about calories in, calories out and some stuff. And it was kind of wrong thinking back, on it. But at the same time, people really liked the delivery. They liked that I made health fun for them to learn about. And they loved that I was talking about something different. And at the same time, there was very little competition on YouTube. There were like 3 or 4 health channels. It was like me and Dr. Mercola and Kevin Gianni back then. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And at some point I was like, there's definitely something to this. I can create something with this. And, eventually I did.
That's wild. And where did this, like, your teaching come from? Like your ability to deliver a message, was that just through personal training, where that kind of set you up to deliver and to teach and that translated over? Or were you always like that?
I think that's because it's the way that I teach myself. Like, in order for me to understand something, I have to break it down to the smallest level, and I've got to use analogies, metaphors, acronyms in order for myself to understand something. I remember, Chemistry 200, which was a super complex course in college. I remember I got a perfect score on a chemistry test, which never happens. People were like, how do you do that? I just break it down to the ridiculous and I just build it back up. It's just one step at a time. You just have to be willing to get in the reps, because, a lot of people think if you read a book, okay, you've read the book and you know what you need to know and you're done. No, you got to reread it and you got to read it again. And you got to read it again. Like this book right here, and I've been going through The Science of Storytelling. This is my 3rd time through this book. Like, I just keep reading it over and over again until, as I start to go through it, I know what's coming next. And when you know what's coming next and you've got those repetitions in and there's got that new wiring in your brain because of the repetitions, you have a true understanding of it. And when you have a true understanding of it, then you can take it and go ahead and explain it to other people. And so that's kind of where the teaching comes from, is just having an understanding and just speaking in a way that people understand. I have another company called Simple Clear Marketing. And the premise behind that is just, you want to use words that regular people use. And there's a lot of people, not only in the health space, but every space, who feel like they need to sound professional. They need to be respected by their peers and stuff for what they put out online, but that's not your audience. My audience was not other health experts. My audience was not other personal trainers. My audience was my mom, the average person out there who doesn't really know a lot about health, who's feverishly looking for some explanation that she can understand about what's going on with her and how she can fix it. And so if I ever put out any content, I always gave it the mom test. Will my mom get this? And if my mom can't get it, then I need to rewrite it, or I need to reshoot it, or I need to re-record it. And so I feel like a lot more people need to do that, understanding who your audience is and also understanding which words they use to describe their problems. It's so important.
And I can think of a couple times where you've done that just right off the bat, where when you're explaining insulin and you're like, it's a key and a lock, and explaining it that way, it's like, oh, that makes sense. You're talking about cholesterol, and it's either cars on a highway or like the number of cars in the highway, describing kind of the different types of cholesterol that you can have. And it's like, oh, simple, concrete analogies that are easy to understand, because it's hard to imagine just fat cells floating around or something like that, but breaking it down in those analogies makes it so much easier. And I constantly catch myself doing that, where you want to French it up. You want to make it sound real smart because you want to impress people. But you're doing that at the expense of people understanding your message.
Yeah, you're making people's. I love Donald Miller's work on this, the story brand guy. He talks about the brain wants to conserve calories. And so if the brain has to burn a lot of calories trying to understand your message and what you're talking about, the brain just checks out. And it, hits the back button or goes to another website or exits your website. And so we need to really make a concerted effort to be simple and clear in what we talk. Because, since we're talking to business owners and entrepreneurs here, it's not the best product that actually makes the sales. It's the one that the customers can understand the fastest. That's what's, and a lot of people don't do that because, again, they feel that need to look smart. The smartest coach doesn't get the clients. It's the clearest one. So you have to be clear.
I remember Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels was saying that about doing webinars where when he would initially go out, he would try to teach as much as possible in one thing, and nobody would buy his products at the end. And then somebody went up to him and they said something like, it's not the person who teaches the most. It's the person that explains one concept really well that people can walk away actually having something actionable. And then he was like, it clicked from there. And I was able to deliver my message much clearer after that point. In terms of getting to that point where you understand it for yourself, how do you read and how do you reread? Is it highlighting? Is it notes in the margins? I saw some sticky notes. What's your process?
I'm a big highlighter guy. Okay. I go through highlighters like you would not know. Like friends these days buy me highlighters. Like if you want to buy me a gift, you want to send me a Christmas present, send me a box of highlighters. Like you'll be the most amazing person in the world. And so, that's it. I highlight the first time through. The second time through, I'll go through with a pen and I'll put a star or I'll put exclamation points next to anything that's super important. Sometimes I'll dog ear the page. I write notes in the pages. I probably have some, I'm just writing notes in the front pages and the back pages, wherever I can find stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's highlighter all up in here because I just go through highlighters like you would not believe. I write notes as well. So I always have a notebook next to me and like something super, super duper important. I'll just go ahead and write the note there. And I don't review my notes as much as I should. I think the actual writing helps it to stick. And then once in a while, I'll go back and I'll just review the notes, and it's surprising how much stuff that I've actually forgot, things that are no longer top of mind. And that's why it's so important to do the repetitions. When you go work out, you don't just do one set, you got to do another set, and you got to do another set, and you got to do another set. And, we need to take our education seriously, and we need to commit ourselves to learning stuff and actually making it something that we create time for. For me, again, it's the first thing I do in the morning. I meditate and then I read. And then when I'm done working, I'm like, cool, I got a couple hours. I'll just go get in bed and I'll read. And at some point, I'll probably take a nap. I'll fall asleep and I'll wake up and I'll grab the book and I'll read some more. It's kind of like what Kobe Bryant was saying when he was on. I used a clip of Kobe Bryant on my Quote of the Day show a few weeks ago. He was talking about being obsessive. I'm obsessive about my reading. He's obsessive or was obsessive about basketball. He says, hey, I'm going to get my 2 hours in the morning, and then I'm going to go home. I'm going to eat. I'm going to recover. I'm going to hang out with my kids and da-da-da-da. And then noontime, I'm going to get another 2 hours in. I'm going to come home and I'm going to hang out with my family and da-da-da-da-da. And then later on that evening, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get another 2 hours in. And he knows that nobody else is doing that. Nobody else. Hardly anybody's putting in an hour of reading. And it makes me wonder, like, how can you be excellent at your craft without fully understanding it? And so that's why I like to go deeper in personal development. I love all the personal development teachers out there. They're doing good. That's phenomenal. But I don't want to just go out there and repeat platitudes and repeat quotes over and over again. There's a place for that. But I think there's something beautiful to having people understand what's going on in their brain and their body that is making them sabotage themselves over and over and over again. When you can say, hey, you've got this thing in your brain, it's called your attention center. You got this other thing, it's called your fear center. Then you've got your prefrontal cortex where you decide and you plan and you imagine. And, you can do that and show them pictures of it. And they go, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing to myself. Now it makes sense. So I just want to be able to use my backgrounds of physiology and kinesiology and biology to be able to teach people how to have essentially more abundance from a biological standpoint. And they love it and they get it. It sticks.
So what are the ways that people will sabotage themselves?
God, where do I even start? Well, typically it's conflicts, and it's our programming. So for example, you may want to make $100,000 this year, but there's this really important period of your life between birth and age 7 where you're just a sponge. You come into this world and you don't know who and how to be. You don't come into this world with experience. And so you were taught by your parents, mom, dad, grandparents, anybody who's close to you. You're taught by your church. You're taught by your culture in general you're taught how to be, what to do, how to fit in, how to not stand out too much, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And for a lot of us, because I know I'm talking to entrepreneurs here, a lot of us are trained during that really important period of time that money's not good. People with money are greedy. Money is scarce. It takes a lot of hard work and hours to make money. You got to trade time for dollars. You may have picked up some associations like money makes mom and dad fight. Money makes parents get divorced. Money takes my dad and my mom away from me because they have to go somewhere to make money, and there's a loss of love there. So there's kind of like a hole inside because of money. You've associated that with money, that feeling. And so this may come around sales. Oh my God, those guys keep knocking on my door, trying to sell me something, trying to manipulate me, trying to take our hard-earned money and da-da-da. We all hear these things. And because we're so young and because they're much older than we are, we assume from that perspective of a young child that adults know what they're talking about. And we learn again how to be, and we learn again what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. And a lot of us have learned that money is wrong. A lot of us have learned that sales are wrong. A lot of us have learned that marketing is manipulation. A lot of us have learned that advertising is bad, right? What happened when Instagram started putting advertising or advertisements on Instagram? Everybody just lost their shit, right? Advertising is terrible. If you think advertising is terrible, how can you expect to be able to run ads for your business? You're going to run into a conflict there. And so that's kind of what we do. We have this survival programming that's like this book of rules for how we should be and how we should relate to different things in our lives. But then we have another part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, that wants us to go out there and thrive and to set goals. And so we set ourselves a goal on January 1st. I'm going to make $100,000 this year. I'm going to make $1 million this year. I'm going to do something. However, at the same time, if you have this programming, whether consciously or unconsciously, it conflicts with the goal. You have a part of your brain called the ACC, anterior cingulate cortex. It's the conflict detector. And so you make this decision, I'm gonna make all this money. Conflict detector goes, wait, you don't even like money. Like, wait, you don't even like sales. What are you doing? Remember what your mom and dad told you about sales and marketing? Remember how bad it is? And so it lights up this conflict detector. And then it sends a message to your fear center, which is your amygdala. It's actually an emotional processing center, but primarily fear. And your amygdala goes, hey, we've got all these associations in your brain that say money is bad and money breaks up marriages and money causes more problems and all of this stuff. You're going to do what again? You know what I'm saying? You're going to try this again. 2020 comes along, you're going to try. You did it in 2019 too, and you did it in 2018 and 2017. You keep doing this thing over and over and over again. And what happens then is that the amygdala, this fear center, sends a message to your prefrontal cortex here, right in the front of your brain, which is responsible for planning and making decisions and imagination. And here's the deal. What happens? We do this thing for about, I don't know, a week. We do this thing for about 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, we can't imagine anymore. All of a sudden, we can't really plan anymore. All of a sudden, we're having a really hard time making decisions because we're conflicted. Because at the bottom of our being, of who we are, is our beliefs. And if our beliefs don't change, then we don't change. We have to understand something that's super important. There is a creative formula. And the creative formula goes, be do have, right? We got it all screwed up. You may have taken a course. It's a really good quote from Jen Sincero in her book, You Are a Badass. And she says, there's research that shows that 5% of people who buy courses and go to seminars, expensive stuff, only 5% of them actually do anything with it. How many people do you know who, and maybe you, and there's me as well, I've done this before too, who've bought a $2,000 marketing course and never finished it, never opened it, never did anything with it at all. And they're like, oh, I'm going to do it next year when it comes back around. And they never do it again, right? And the problem is this. The course is teaching you what to do, but you have to be the type of person who does those things in order to have the results that the course promises. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That you're never going to do it long term unless you change who you are, who you're being. Like your being is what you believe. Your being is your believing, right? And then the doing is the becoming. You take the course, you decide, hey, here's who I'm going to be. I've made a choice of who I'm going to be. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be intuitive. I'm going to be a risk taker. I'm going to become all of these things. I'm going to make that choice to do it. But in order to get there, you're going to have to do some stuff. And along that doing part, becoming the person who you want to be, there's obstacles. Shit gets hard. And that's the problem. People don't want to go through the hard part. They don't want to do it. So let's take an example. Marie Forleo. Not dissing Marie at all. Let's not do that. What I'm saying is like Marie's story is interesting. In Marie's story, she says that her mom was very independent, and her mom, whenever she had a problem, she said, it's figure outable. I can figure this out. Marie got that conditioning. She got that programming. She had that modeling. Mom can figure anything out, so I can figure anything out as well. And now Marie's got a big business, and she's got a really popular book called Everything is Figure Outable, because that's who she's being. But if that's not your philosophy, if that's not who you were raised to be, you're probably not going to have the success of Marie Forleo, because you're not going to do the work. Because the obstacles in doing the work, you freak out and you go, I can't handle this. This is not who I am, so I'm going to go back to safety of who I was before, and I'll try the course next time. So the result that you get, it's called the law of correspondence. The result that you get is always going to be as a result or a consequence of who you're being. You know, if somebody makes $50,000 a year and I was to give them, they got a promotion tomorrow. They've always made $50,000 a year for the last 10 years. That's their cap. And somebody gave them a job or a promotion that pays them $300,000. They will automatically fuck it up. They will figure out a way to screw this up so they can go back to baseline to who they were before. And so you can't have the results. You cannot expect to have the $1 million business when you have not changed who you are. It just doesn't work. It does not work. And so what we learn out there in many books and many courses is you have to do this in order to have this, and then you can be rich, confident, and all these other things, right? A risk taker? No. That goes in the beginning. You make that choice in the beginning. You start working on that stuff in the beginning. And then you go through that process. You start to become the person you want to be. And now the success that you have matches the person who you are. You see what I'm saying? We got it all screwed up. Yeah. This is why 95% of us are sabotaging ourselves every year. We're going to conferences, we're taking notes, and then we're putting them into a drawer. And then we're like, why am I not getting results? Oh, it's because I didn't go to the next conference. Oh, I should sign up for that. You go to the next, it just turns, and then you've got 30 something different courses and you've dropped $60,000 on them and you haven't gotten any results. That's the problem. Conflicts. You're not being that person. There's a really good book. Did you have another question? Because I can just talk about this stuff all day.
Let me get that book recommendation first, and then I'll have some follow-ups.
There's a great book I stumbled upon maybe about a year ago at a dollar book sale. It's called Profiles of Power and Success. And it's by Gene Landrum. And what Gene Landrum does, he's a Jungian psychologist. He's also the founder or co-founder of Chuck E. Cheese. And what he likes to do is study very successful people and find the commonalities amongst them all, like what personality traits, what past experiences have they had. And like in this particular book, that's a good one. Birth order. Firstborn children are groomed for a life of high expectations and perfectionism. They carry the mantle of leadership for the family and are instilled with great drive. Not always the case, but very much so with males, with men. Usually it's the firstborn. And, you know, he looks at people. I've got several of his books, Jeff Bezos, Coco Chanel, Martha Stewart, Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Henry Ford, on and on. He studied Napoleon Bonaparte, on and on. And he's looking for those commonalities. Here's a really important one: transiency. And what he means by that is moving around into different environments, moving home, traveling at a very young age, instills self-sufficiency, independence, perseverance, and risk-taking. Children become comfortable with ambiguity and learn to cope with the unknown and learn to risk with alacrity. One of our biggest fears, and this is how your brain is wired, is unknown. Your brain freaks out if it doesn't know what's going on. It's like, oh, this is different. I really like the status quo. I really like the way things are. That scares me. I don't want to go do that. But as a child, if you are put in unfamiliar situations, frequently you have a lower fear of the unknown. Your fear of the unknown is nowhere near the average person's. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple more. Here's a good one. Positive role models. Independent and self-employed parents instill autonomy and demonstrate that success is not tied to a paycheck. Security is personal, not organizational. So there's a model there. Your brain looks for models, and your brain literally patterns itself after those models. And so if you have a parent or two parents who are self-employed, that becomes part of your model, and you become more of a risk taker. Because if your parent is self-employed, their attachment or their fear of failure, they see it differently than everybody else. They can handle it better. Whereas if somebody's raised by 9 to 5 parents, usually the 95 parents, but not all the time, I'm saying usually, don't like risk because you might fail. So when you're raised in a family that says, don't do anything risky because you might fail, then you're not likely to become a successful entrepreneur versus somebody who was raised by a self-employed parent or parents. I'll give you one more just because this is fun.
This is great.
Fantasy hero / mentor. Imprints children with unconscious feelings of omnipotence and removes all limits for potential achievement. Everyone should have a mythological hero or heroine as a bigger than life mentor. Superman for me. I still have Superman stuff.
You got your coffee cup.
I literally have a Superman cape on my chair. Really. I'm huge on Superman. Always been a big Superman guy. And also, as we talked about, Michael Jordan was a huge, faraway mentor who I've never met, but I've just read a lot about his life. And so those are some of the past experiences that successful entrepreneurs almost always have. And so what we got to do is kind of look at ourselves and say to ourselves, okay, did my past experiences as a child in my upbringing shape me to become a successful entrepreneur or not? And if the answer is no, just know you can change it. You can do something about that. I just real quick, before I put this book down, successful people, the ones that he studied, tend to be intuitive. They tend to have high self-esteem and self-confidence. They tend to have risk propensity, so they're risk takers. They're rebellious. They ignore experts. They avoid the pack. They dance to their own tune. They're willing to destroy the present in order to create the future, right? A lot of us are attached to the present. We don't want to change it because we're afraid of loss. They're obsessive. Talked about Kobe Bryant, obsessive, 2 hours. Workaholics, I hate to say that word, workaholic, but basically type A personalities who are internally driven, and they're tenacious. And so when you ask yourself, who am I being right now? Because those are the being traits that tend to create successful people. Ask yourself, is that who I'm being? And then ask yourself, okay, if I can make a choice to become that way and be willing to go through all of the growth experiences and the obstacles that are going to shape me to be that way, will I be successful? And you will. because your success is always going to match who you are. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling?
No, man, that makes perfect sense. So one of the things so you go from be, do, achieve. A lot of us think it's do, achieve, and be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've heard is this idea of building confidence through competence. So it's you don't start with confidence. You have to do it through action to achieve confidence. But how do these kind of two ideas square with each other? Because in your model, it start with be, but if you need to be confident to do something, how would you think through that?
We got to make that choice, number one, to become confident. Like literally just make a choice. It doesn't have to be super complex. Like I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to, we'll say, act as if. But I understand that as I go through these experiences, it's going to teach me, it's going to grow me, is what I'm saying, right? It's almost like, when I go into my garage and I work out, nobody has a comfortable workout. Everybody's workout is uncomfortable. I know if I go out in there and I do some curls, that last set is going to hurt. Those last reps are going to hurt. But what is the result of that? Is growth, right? You are essentially going through all of these different obstacles, all these different experiences, so you can grow in your confidence, so you can grow in your self-esteem, so you can grow in your willingness to take risks. So you can grow into the person who has the thing that you want. So it's just a different perception on failure. Most people will fail and go right back to who they were being before. Entrepreneurs, we need to fail to start to understand who we are. You know what I'm saying? In order to grow. If you don't grow, it's like that Jim Rohn quote. You can take all the money in the world and divide it up equally amongst all the people. And soon thereafter, the money will go back to the same people, like from where it came from. And that's just a matter of consciousness. That's just a matter of being. The people who have the money are being a different way. The people who are given the money, since it doesn't match who they are, they're just automatically going to get rid of it. And it's going to go back to where it came from. So it's the growth.
So one of the things that you're talking about is this idea of risk in failing, and something that I've been thinking about. I was been rereading, like you were saying. The 2020 has been my year of rereading books, because exactly what you're saying. I found the first time you read it is kind of just like, it's entertainment, but the second and third time you go back through it, it's like that's when the real learning takes place. So I've been doing that with Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb, and he distinguishes the difference between like risk and ruin, where you can take risks all day and fail as long as you're not kind of betting the whole lot. You're not putting everything on it, versus ruin is just something you can't come back from. You lose everything or whatever happens. And so how do you think through risk in doing something and maybe protecting the downside, or just what are your thoughts on risk and risk taking?
My thoughts on risk, well, and for me in my business, I take calculated risk. I'm not about to just, you get people who create products that nobody ever asked for, who are just like, oh, I think this will be a good deal, a good idea. Let's go ahead and do that. I like to do my research. I like for there to be some evidence that there's a need for what I create. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off. And it's also just a smarter way to do it. I'm a type of person that some people may disagree as to whether this is risk or not. I like to at least know what's in the pool before I jump into it. That's the way that I do it. And the reason why I do it is so I don't jump into ruin. You don't want to ruin your whole stuff by doing something that doesn't make any sense. And so, yeah, you do want to be calculated with it. For example, thyroid. We did a summit online called the Thyroid Sessions. And, what really made me pull the trigger on that was the fact that whenever I did a podcast on thyroid health, it would get way more downloads than the other podcasts that we would do, right? The other shows we would do. So again, I always look for evidence, always look for, is there a want around what I'm creating? Not a need, but is there a want around what I'm creating? And I think entrepreneurs kind of get those things confused, wanting and needing, because we feel like, people need this. But if they don't have a desire for it, you're not going to be able to create that desire yourself. They already have to have it. And then you go ahead and use that desire and create a program or product or whatever it may be, or some type of service to match that want and that desire. And now you've got yourself some customers. And so, risk is great, but you don't want to ruin yourself. I do agree with that.
So using a concrete example, and maybe you don't see it this way, but at least from the outside, it seems like you took a really big risk going from, you were running Underground Wellness for 7 years. You had this really successful podcast and YouTube channel, and you're doing all of this. And then you pivoted into doing more, I don't know what you would call it, whether it's self-help, self-development, personal development, but pivot into that. What was going through your mind when you did that? How did that come about, and how are you thinking through it?
My brain was like, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. I'll pass. I did holistic health for 7 years. And the God's honest truth is I just got sick of it, man. I was no longer looking forward to reading the books. And at the same time, I felt like you can listen to my show this Tuesday, and you listen to the show and you go, oh man, I really feel like there's something going on with my HPA axis and my adrenals. I should do this. And then next week you listen to the show, and that same person who's listening to the show goes, I think I have candida, right? Maybe I should do a candida cleanse. And the next week you listen to the show, and same person goes, I think I might have a vitamin D deficiency too. And it just kind of goes on and on and on and on and on. And I felt like I was turning people into orthorexics, where it was like, everybody has like the solution for what problem I have. And I don't know, like I'm confused. I feel like I was confusing a lot of people. And at the same time, like there was just and it bothered me more then than it does now, but there were just people who would say stuff and I would be like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. It just doesn't sound right. And it's funny because actually I don't want to get into COVID and conspiracy theories and who was putting information out and whatnot, but a lot of these same people who are on my show are doing that stuff right now. And it's like, it just didn't feel right in my heart to continue doing the show. And so I had found myself reading toward the end of Underground Wellness, reading more books on personal development than health. I'd be reading a book on personal development, and then, my mailman would come by and drop off the next book that I had to use to get prepared for the next podcast. And I didn't like doing that. I was like, I want to get back to that book. I really like that book. And so at some point I just had to make a decision to move on. And I was like, hey, I know how to create a following online. I just got to apply the same principles to personal development. So I took some time off. I had an enormous amount of money saved up, and I was just like, I'm just going to take some time off and just chill for about a year. And I'm going to read books on personal development and just get my game right. And then a year later, I started another podcast, the Sean Croxton Sessions, and started interviewing experts in the personal growth field. And then I started the Quote of the Day show. And, the Quote of the Day show for me has been a lifesaver because of my obsessiveness around preparing for podcast. I was able to let that go. Because when I got ready for a podcast, for an interview, it would be like 20 to 40 hours of prep for 1 hour of content. Like I'm just a nut. And it was really stressful, and it was kind of affecting my life. And so now the Quote of the Day show it takes me like 3 or 4 hours a week, which is great. Yeah. But I want to go back to something because I missed something in there. I can't do something that I don't like anymore. I can't force myself to do something. I think a lot of people go through their entire lives doing something. Underground Wellness was a 7-figure business. That business was crushing it. We would do these online summits and I just refresh, and just money. It's really, really cool. But again, like Gary Vee said a long time ago, in 2008, stop doing shit you hate. And it wasn't that I hated it. It's just I didn't love it as much as I did before. And whenever that's the case, you got to move on. And there were people who were like, you can't stop this business. You're making so much money and you're helping so many people. And it's like, it starts with me. I can do the money again. And I still have the same email list. And so the people who are following me now, they can follow me into this new thing. And if not, that's cool. But I've got to do what's right for me and what makes me feel good because it's my life and I only have so many years. So let's just do this thing right.
Were you always the type of person to do that? Or was that something that changed along the way? Because it seemingly most people would not make that decision. They're like, man, I was doing this. I started on YouTube making no money from it. And then it grew to a 7-figure business. Like I could either hire out a team, I could sell this business to someone else. I could just keep doing it and doubling down on it. But like, how did you get the ability to just be like, enough is enough? What process was that?
I think that going through the process and growing Underground Wellness and going through the obstacles shaped me in my becoming to become the person who's confident enough to say, I'm good. I'm confident enough to create something else. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like it never even, like it never crossed my mind.
Type of person that it's going to come back.
It's going to come back. Like I know the laws. I know how to follow the laws of the universe, even though I hadn't even studied them earlier on in my life. But I just I don't know. I'm very intuitive. I'm super intuitive. So if somebody asked me like, how did you grow your business? I'd be like, I don't know. I just follow my gut. I just kind of go on feel. Does this feel right or does this not feel right? It's more intuition than it is strategy. And I just had an intuition and I had a confidence that I can stop doing something and just completely let it go, detach from it and move to the next level and create something new. It's just who I am. It's just kind of like with Underground Wellness. In the beginning, there was never a doubt that it was going to be a 7-figure business. There's never a doubt. It never even crossed my mind that it would fail. You know, I wasn't aware of the statistics about 95% of businesses fail in the first whatever years. Like, even if I knew, I'd be like, well, I'm going to be in the 5% who succeed. Tell me what they did, and that's it. So it's just more of a mindset than anything else, man. There's a Will Smith interview where he says I believe I can become the president of the United States. And that's just kind of what I believe. Like, I believe whatever I want to do, I can do. Whatever I want to have, I can have. Like, I am just like you are, just like everybody else is. Like, we have this thing, like in the Bible. I'm not a big Bible guy or a religious guy, but I am that I am. I am blank, right? And you get to choose what goes into the blank. Before you didn't get to choose. Before those first 7 years and all that early wiring in your brain, it's like, I am what everybody thinks I should be, right? But now as an adult, you can look back on that program and you can look at your results and be like, I'm not down with who I am right now. And I'm not down with these results. And I'm not down with what I'm doing. Now, my greatest power is to choose who I'm going to be. Okay, I'm going to be successful in the personal development space. I'm going to be the best person on the planet when it comes to entrepreneurial mindset and money mindset. That's it. Okay, cool. I've made that choice. All right, let's go on Amazon.com. Let's order the books and let's do this thing. That's it. Yeah. That's the possibility. There's infinite possibilities for your life, and you get to go, that one. Now I just got to wait. Because it's not going to happen tomorrow. Now I got to wait. Now I got to do the work. Now I got to become. And at some point I'm going to have. But most people can't get through the first 2 weeks because you made one video and nobody watched it. Oh, I shouldn't do this. Da, 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 da. Like, you got to do that shit again. You know what I mean? And you got to do it again. You got to do it again. You ever seen the hockey stick graphs where it's like, boom, we get here. That's what most people do. They get here and they go, nah, I'm cool. Because they want to go hockey stick. You got hockey now. That's how it really works. People are unrealistic when it comes to, the expectations around what the process looks like for becoming successful.
Yeah. I was watching an interview with, do you know Brian Balfour? He's like a former marketing guy from HubSpot. But he was talking about how that hockey stick, a lot of people want to see what people did at that inflection point. And he's like, no, you need to focus on all those little dots because that's like you're way back here. You need to know what these things are, not what that one big thing, because it wasn't one big thing. It was all the compound interest of those little things. But you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk earlier, and I was listening to something he was saying recently, basically about how, like you're saying, you get to choose your perspective on these things. Like if you're just starting out and you have maybe no following or not a ton of resources, you can see that as a hindrance, or you can see like, man, there is an entire playing field available for me. I'm not locked into one path. I can choose all this. I can choose what I learn and what I pursue and how I do this. And it seems like it's basically, you you don't get to complain until you've put in the work to see whether or not you can do it. If you haven't bought the books on Amazon and read them and done it for a long time to build up those little dots along the way, it's what do you mean you can't do it? You haven't tried doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And right now is the best opportunity for people. You know, people are like, I'm afraid. And I can understand this because, you know, a lot of us grow up taught to not be seen and not to be heard, just to be quiet. And I get that. And so a lot of us fear going out there with a message and voicing it, writing it, speaking it, creating videos around it. And we say to ourselves, I don't want to go and put my stuff out there because people are going to think this and people are going to think the other. And the reality of it really is once you start putting stuff out there, nobody's watching your shit anyway. You know, like nobody's watching. You're going to get like 12 views with your first YouTube video. Like this is the perfect time for you to practice, you know, just practice, like get into the pool and know that people for some reason have this idea that they're going to put a YouTube video up and, you know, 100,000 people are going to watch it tomorrow. Like, no, that's not the case. Yeah. That's not the case at all. And I think another big question that I ask people, because they say, everybody's going to say this. And I go, who's your everybody? I need to know. Let me get a pen. Let me get a piece of paper. I want to list everybody. And they go, and usually it's like two people. And so it's like you're not doing something because these two people are going to judge you. You know, these two people who might not even show up to your funeral or have anything to say. You're worried about what they're going to think about what you're doing. You know, we have this. We care too much about what people think of us, and we want so much instant gratification. I sell Marie Forleo's B School course as an affiliate every year, and we have these masterminds as a bonus when people buy it. And one of the things I show them every year, because they're used to Marie Forleo stuff now, the set, the clothes, the camera work and all that stuff, the editing, the bumper, all of that stuff. And I make them watch Marie's first video just to show them like, this is where it began, guys. It began with her sitting on her couch in regular clothes, you know, with her computer talking. That was where it started. You want to be here. You're comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. Can't do that. You got to go back to the beginning. Oh, Sean, I need to know like what lights I need and what microphone and what camera and all that stuff. It's like, yo, do you have an iPhone? Yeah. Okay. You got everything you need. You know, there's so many people out there who have all of this fucking equipment, all this fancy equipment because they needed it in order to get started. Like you don't need all of that stuff. You just need an iPhone and you can create a business out of that.
Yeah. One of the things right Marie said in her book that really resonated, where she's like, you need to flip it not from I can't to I won't. It's like, I can't wake up. I can't start a business. I don't have enough time. It's like, no, you won't find enough time. You won't wake up early. You won't start a business. It's all in the mindset and the way you frame it to yourself. Yeah, absolutely. It's all in your, you know, that's one of my F's. It's your perception, but it's your filters. You know, it's your perception is what it is. That's what I call filters. You know, and there's these filters that I talk about, like there's who you are right now and there's who you want to be. And in between, what's keeping you from getting there is filters, which is the way that you perceive yourself and the way that you perceive the world, what you accept and what you reject when it comes to you and what you believe in your experience. Then there's fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of public ridicule. Right. And then we've got, I'm adding one in there now. I just was thinking about this the other day. Family, friends, and foes, you know, the people in your life and what they think about you. There's your feelings as well, because a lot of us are stuck in a constant loop of guilt and shame over and over and over again. And it's really hard to be successful because successful people are typically optimistic people. It's hard to be successful when you're stuck in guilt and shame, you know. And then we've got flow, like getting into the flow. You probably read the book, The Go-Giver. You read the Go-Giver? Adam Grant?
Is it Adam? Yeah, and Pindar. No, it's not Adam Grant. It's somebody else. Great book, though. And Pindar, the kind of mentor there, you know, he's telling the guy, you're pointed in the wrong direction. And we got to get you pointed in the right direction. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are pointed in the wrong direction. And what I mean by that, they're pointed in the direction of how can I get, right? How can I get more money? how can I get more subscribers and And it's like, I think that's the difference between myself and a lot of other entrepreneurs. That's the difference between a Gary Vaynerchuk and a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a difference between a Marie Forleo and a lot of entrepreneurs, is that we're pointed in the direction of giving, right? That's what we're focused on, giving. A lot of people will say to me, well, should I hold off on making the YouTube videos until my lead magnet and my website and all my products are ready? And I go, no, you're pointed in the wrong direction. I was making YouTube videos when I had a MySpace page. That's where I was sending people to. Go follow me on MySpace and right? Like, you got to lead with your giving. Like, if you really want to go out there and help people, go out there and help people. Like, what are you waiting for? You're always waiting for something. You're waiting for this and that, the other to be perfect. And number one, it's never going to be perfect, but you can be helping people right now. You can be closing sales if you want to right now. You can be bringing on new clients right now by just going out there and leading with the giving, by participating in the flow. It's just the circle. It's a cycle of giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. But if you forget one part of it, it's probably not going to work out too well. It's just not.
So one of the things that's been very impressive about you and your career is you've been just ahead of the curve and ahead of the trend on so many things and got in early. So I was making a list of them. So YouTube, paleo, ebooks, online summits, podcasting, just seemingly all of these things, you were doing them right around when they started getting going. Is this just intuition, like you're saying, or were there other things behind it? Or is it just being exposed and being aware and paying attention and seeing how to follow that stuff?
I honestly, I don't know what it is. When I saw YouTube, I was like, this is going to be a big deal. I started YouTube again, 2006, 2007, podcasting. You can have your own radio show for free? Really?
You didn't even call it a podcast, did you? It was a radio show.
I call it Underground Wellness Radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, nobody knew what a podcast was back then. I mean, nobody really knew what a podcast was. It's like maybe 5 years ago. Yeah. So, you just got in. I just got in early. I just saw the opportunity. I saw the want, because the problem was, in order to get your message out back in the day, you had to pay lots of money. Advertisement, classifieds, TV, radio advertisements, that type of thing. And I was like, wait, stop the clock. We can do this for free? Oh, get out of here. Let's do it. Like, that's just kind of what, ebooks. I mean, there were ebooks back then, but I changed ebooks in a way, like I made ebooks look nice. Back then it was like just a really janky PDF. It was just like a Word document that people just turned into a book, into a PDF. And I was like, no, let's make this thing look nice with really cool graphics and
very nice.
Yeah. Let's make it really, really cool looking. Online summits were done back then as telesummits. So it was just audio interviews. And I was like, well, I already do audio interviews on Underground Wellness Radio. What's the differentiate? Like, how do we differentiate? How do we make it unique? So I was like, okay, first thing, let's do the audio interview, but let's create slides so we can have a visual presentation, because people, there's different types of learning. There's visual, there's auditory, and there's kinesthetic as well. So let's add a visual component to it. So we did that. And then people started copying that, which is cool. And then people started to go into the Skype interviews, kind of like what we're doing right now, but on Zoom. And I was like, that's cool, but now we got a bigger budget. Let's just travel around the country and interview people in person with a camera crew. All right, let's go do that. And it's like, I had the idea and probably started working on it the next day. And so that's like, I always try to make stuff better than anybody else is doing it. Like, how can we do that? It's a little bit better. How can we innovate that? And then get the idea, but instead of like sitting on the idea and not taking action on it, like I immediately start working on it, because it'll bother me. I have a hard time not doing things. It starts to wear me down, and I start to have that gnawing feeling of, there's this thing you should be doing, Sean, that you're not doing. Why are you not doing it? That I think a lot of people walk around with. Like, the only solution for that, for me, the only treatment is to actually just go ahead and do it. If not, I just don't feel good anymore.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost sounds like you, at each level, you're kind of building up ammunition to get to the next level. So on YouTube, it's you're building up a following and you're doing this consistently. And then once you get enough for that, then was the ebook the first product you made?
It was the first product yes, it was. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. And then like doing that and then getting enough ammunition to go and do the summits. And then you build up a big enough budget where now you can travel around and do this, as opposed to just being like, well, I need to travel around because this is what Sean's doing. So I need to do these video interviews and I need a camera crew and I need a travel budget. And it's like, start it off for free until you build up enough to get to that next level. But for that, what was the process for the ebook? What was it like to actually do your first product and ask people to buy something or put something out for people to purchase?
It was actually fairly easy because, and that's why I kind of stumbled on what you asked me previously about the ebook being my first product, because there was a product before that, but it wasn't my product. There was a network marketing product that I just fell in love with.
I remember that.
There's probably 20 something, maybe 30 different PubMed research studies on. Back then there were like maybe 7. It's very rare
that glutathione product.
Yeah, Protandim. Yeah, it increases your superoxide dismutase and your glutathione, which are endogenous antioxidants. And so I gotten such great results with it, and there was so much research on it that, research never comes with supplements typically. And I thought about it for 13 months, and I was like, it's a network marketing product. This is going to make me look really bad, and I'm going to be a sellout and da-da-da-da-da. But I finally just worked up the courage, and I did this promo thing leading up to the reveal of what it was. And that was the best thing ever. Challenging because I did get some haters. I remember after the podcast where I introduced it and we did a whole interview about it, I went back to my Facebook page and it was like, sell out, sell out, sell out. But you know what is a great cure for that? It's like when $8,000 checks start showing up every week. You know what I'm saying? I had never seen checks like that so far. And I was like, oh, well, this is cool. So now I can stop, or at least cut way back on doing health coaching with clients. And now I've got these automatic checks coming in because now I've grown my downline. It's kind of running itself. Now let's sit my ass down and start writing an ebook. So I got a coach. You may know Kate Shanahan, Deep Nutrition.
Oh yeah, I worked with her for her.
Her husband Luke coached me up on the first couple of chapters. I remember we sat down. They came to visit one time. We sat down and kind of mapped the thing out, and he really helped me with that, get me going. Wrote that thing, and actually the book itself is pretty much what I just said to my clients, during our sessions. It was just like boom, boom, boom. So I already knew what the book was going to be about. Wrapped that thing up. Elliot Hulse interviewed me to promote the book on my show. And I remember when that show was over, my friend Evelyn and I went to Basic, which was the bar near my place. And we sat down and I opened up my ClickBank account and I was just like, refresh, 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 refresh. And it was just so cool to actually have my own product that people were buying. And not only did they buy, but people really loved. And, we are 10 years later, probably more, and people still buy the book. And it's still used at St. Mary's College in their nutrition program. Like it's kind of nuts. And so, yeah, that was the process for that. Pretty cool.
Well, it just goes to like you're saying, doing it better than everybody else. Like when you think about an ebook, especially now, it's a lot of fluff. It's, maybe 20, 30 pages. That's really just a blog post. And that's what you expect now. But you had profiles of people, you have like workout or meal plans in it. You have all these different interviews. It holds up, and it almost feels like, to call it an ebook gives it the wrong impression of what it is. It's like 150 pages or something like that. Yeah, I've given it to friends, my sister. It's been super cool.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. So what are the main things that you're working on now as your business has grown and pivoted?
A couple things. I started up a company, Simple Clear Marketing, as I talked about before, which is a consulting company for health coaches and to help health coaches with their messaging. Health coaches are usually really bad about marketing. They're bad about sales. They're bad about picking niches. They're very general. It's like optimal wellness. Like, who wants off? Like, no, it's just a little too broad. And I'm just kind of sick of seeing people spend thousands of dollars on certifications and never making their money back. And, what I do with my clients is I help them, figure out their niche. And we, of course, create messaging around that, their sales sequence, teach them a good sales script. We get them a wireframe of their homepage of their website. So I just give them everything that they need. So they'll have the clarity, but also they'll be able to take this wireframed website document and just give it to a designer and be like, here's what I want. So it's really simple. It's very clear, and it's going very well so far. I was actually thinking that was all I was going to do this year. And I wasn't going to teach Money Mind Academy. I was going to kind of get off that a little bit. And when the coronavirus hit, I was like, nah, people, they need and they want to know this information around making more money and being more financially abundant, because coronavirus hit, people had enough money in their bank account to last them until Wednesday, and you got to see like people were really stressing out over money. And I think people's paradigms around money and their beliefs around money, I think have considerably changed, hopefully, because of that. And so now they're more willing and open to saying, okay, what do I need to, or who do I need to be in order to be more financially abundant? And the sources that they're going to right now for financial abundance are doing the do have be, right? If I'm not going to name any names, but if certain people's financial stuff really worked, the country would not be in the situation that it's in. Those people who are teaching financial abundance and financial freedom and financial peace and all of that stuff, I'm going to guess they're probably getting about 5% results, just like everything else. Do have be, they're doing it upside down. So I want to teach people how to manage the filters and the fears and the friends and the foes and the family and the feelings and, getting into the flow so they have the foundation to do what these other people are telling them to do. So that's what I'm really, really focusing on. And I'm rebranding Money Mind Academy, and we're going to call it Money Mindset Made Simple, because I want to simplify it. Money Mind Academy seems like it's a lot, you know what I'm saying? But if it's Money Mindset Made Simple, put everything into 8 modules, everything they need to know. So I'm going to teach it live in July, live online. And then it's just going to be a home study evergreen course on the website.
That sounds awesome. I'm sorry, just one more thing. Also, I'm beta testing another course called Entrepreneurial Academy. Because I did sell Marie Forleo's B School course. And I was like, if I'm going to sell you this course, I am responsible for the being part. So let's do the course. And then after that, as a bonus, we're going to do 6 weeks of this thing that's going to help you to be an entrepreneur. And so I taught that class a couple of days ago and they loved it. So I've got 5 more sessions with them, and that'll very likely be its own course as well. Awesome. Are there particular things regarding money nowadays in terms of what's going on with Corona and everything else that you would recommend to people, advice that you found yourself giving to people who are worried, scared, concerned?
It's a really good question. What would I say? Some advice for them. Look at your beliefs around money. Look at your beliefs around money, and ask yourself, are those beliefs conducive to being financially free? The one thing that really popped for me, this is back in, 2010, 2009. I had a lot of followers on, of course, YouTube and my podcast, but at the same time, I was fairly broke, living in a studio apartment in downtown San Diego that smelled like shrimp. And, I realized that part of my programming was us versus them, right? There's us, the less fortunate, there's us and only we're able to do certain things and have certain things. And there's them, the mean, greedy, rich people. And there are all these associations, negative associations that I had around money. And I think that was probably the one that really cracked me open when I realized that, was that I'm scared of becoming one of them, because if I become one of them, and this is one of the greatest fears that people have, I'm going to lose love. The people who love me, the people who gave me these beliefs, are not going to agree with me making more money. Now, is that true? Probably not, but that's what was in here. That was the lie that I agreed to in my brain. And, I think that realization itself just made me go, well, this is kind of silly. I have a choice. I can be one of them, but I don't have to be greedy. I don't have to be this terrible person. I don't have to manipulate people. It's not, what we tend to do is we make these generalizations and we say, rich people are fill in the blank. One of the questions you can ask yourself around that belief is, everybody? Are all rich people greedy? You don't know any generous, really nice rich people? Okay, they're not all greedy. Okay, because the brain's a lazy piece of meat. The brain likes to make shortcuts and likes to make predictions and generalizations. And we do it in a blink of an eye. We don't even think about it. But when we actually put some effort into it, we can go, no, not all rich people are greedy. There's some rich people who are very generous, actually a ton of them that are. And what that opens up for you is just a space for you to exercise your greatest power of choice, which is when I become rich, I can be this other way, and that's it. I mean, that's what it's all about is choice. I'll give you another one. Does money make all parents fight? No, that's not the truth. It's just a generalization. It was a shortcut. And so we do this in class. There's these 5 questions that we ask around all of these beliefs. And by the end of the class, everybody goes, I can't believe I believe that shit. You know what I'm saying? I think they can't believe it. And then one more thing. This was back in 2010, 2009, when I had this us versus them realization. I was listening to this Dr. John DeMartini interview, and he said, the amount of money that you have will always be in direct proportion to the amount of service that you're providing, the quality and the quantity of the service that you're providing. And so, in class, I put up the 10 richest people in the world. And it's like Zuckerberg. How many people here use Facebook today? How many people here use Instagram today? Okay. Bezos. How many people here used Amazon the last 24 hours? Right? We go, Larry Ellison. How many people used the cloud today? Koch brothers. Even though you don't like them, how many people here wiped your butt today? This is where nobody raises their hand. Well, paper products. If you don't think they should have all of this money, stop fucking giving it to them. You know what I'm saying?
They didn't take it from you. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't take it from you. Like they provided a service, a high quality service, and did a high quantity of it. And now they are super rich because of it. And you want to take it away? Well, you gave it to them. This is. And so now how are you going to feel when you become rich? You're going to think people are going to look at you the way that they look at them. Now you got a real problem. And then I say, if we took the wealth of these top 10 rich people, and it's like, I forget how many, it's like 300 something billion dollars. And we divided it amongst the 330 million Americans. We're just like, we're going to take all your shit, 10 rich people, and we're going to just write a check to everybody. I think it comes out to like $1,500 or something like that. Like, it's not that much money. It's not.
And you probably gave them $1,500 at some point in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And I go, would you rather get your $1,500 check, or would you rather have Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft Windows and toilet paper and all of this stuff? And they go, I don't want the $1,500 check. And that's just a complete paradigm shift for them, where they go, oh, these people really weren't the villains. Even though, there's some social stuff that, of course, there'll be objections to that, of course. But in terms of fiscally, they're not the villains that we created in the story that we make up about our lives. Because the story that we make up about our lives always has heroes and it has villains. And who's the hero? We're always the hero. You know what I'm saying? And you can't have a story without a villain. So you have to realize that you're doing it to yourself. You're just doing it to yourself over and over and over again in order for one thing to be true, that you're right. It's ego.
there's so much of it too that is just like, what belief system is going to serve you? Like, which one? Thinking that everything is within my control or nothing is within my control. It's just, even if one of them's not, even if everything isn't in your control, is that belief going to give you a better life or not? And yeah.
It's choice. It's just choice. But most people don't realize they have a choice, or they're afraid to make the choice because they're going to lose something by making the choice. And usually the choice is the loss of love. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like safety and security and all that stuff. But before you get to like real self-esteem and self-actualization, right there in the middle is love and connection. And we need that love and connection. We need that. We're wired for tribe. You know, we need that. And we feel like if we lose that love and we lose that tribe, we no longer feel safe. We no longer feel secure. And that's why a lot of us never get to the point of self-esteem, because our worth is attached to what people think about us. Your worth is that's not the truth. That's another lie. You know, you're worth it because you were born, because you're here. You know, that's it. You don't have to do anything to have worth. But our belief system tells us that we're not worthy because somebody said something to us and we accepted it, unfortunately.
So last question. I really appreciate you hanging on for all this time. What is the best way for people to start kind of interrogating and figuring out what those belief systems are? Is there a journaling practice? Is it talking to people? What would you say?
Journaling will be great. You know, sit your butt down and write what you learned from your parents about money. You know, one thing, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you experience around money? You know, one thing that I heard or I saw was Sunday, Mom would be cutting coupons. She had the coupon bag, you know, and she would take it to the store and we couldn't buy anything without coupons. It taught me money is scarce, right? Can't buy anything full price. Wait for it to be on sale. Money's scarce. So just to look at, what did your parents say about people who had money? Did your neighbor get a new car and your dad said to you when you were 5 years old, oh, they stole something for that. You know, they made that money, you know, that whatever scheme or whatever. Did they attach something negative to it? So just look at those. The church, you know, did you hear that it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven? You got to go, did they have sewing needles back then? No. What exactly is the eye of the needle? Oh, let's do a Google search. Oh, there were big walls around the cities back in those times. And there was like little passages so people can go in, but there, you know, the city couldn't be invaded by another tribe or another people, right? You can't like invade a city through a little narrow, you know, space in a wall. Got to go through one by one. That's the eye of the needle. People think it's a sewing needle. So it means that, you know, you're going to have to, if the rich man rolls up to the city and comes up on the eye of the needle, in order to get through, he's going to have to drop all of his stuff. And then you can go through. You can't take it to heaven with you. So it's just stuff like that we learn that we never really re-examine. And now, since you believe that passage from the Bible out of context, you go, if I make money, I'm going to go to hell. No. And one more thing, we say to ourselves, you can't be spiritual and rich. It's not spiritual to have money. Here's this is one of my favorite ones. Tony Robbins, Marie Forleo, Gabrielle Bernstein, Lisa Nichols, John DeMartini, Bob Proctor, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer when he was here. What do they all have in common? They're fucking rich. And what do? They're the people we go to for spiritual guidance. So we say we can't be spiritual and have money, but we give money to our spiritual guides for spiritual guidance and thus make them rich. It doesn't make any sense, but we never really look at it and check ourselves on it or examine it so we can go, oh, there's some pretty big holes in that belief. I should probably choose something different. Pardon my French, I've been cursing a lot. I hope.
No, man, that eye of the needle was a beautiful Sean Croxton truth bomb. I loved it. That was awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was a super cool interview, a really big honor for me to be able to do this after following you for so long. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with you, to follow the work that you're doing?
SeanCroxton.com. Of course, you can find the show, which is called the Quote of the Day Show, on all of the podcasting platforms. And follow me on Instagram at Sean Croxton. And if you're a health coach and you want to clear up your messaging, get some clarity with your messaging, reduce overwhelm, find the clients that you really want, you can go to simpleclearmarketing.com.
Awesome. Love the Quote of the Day show. Awesome one with Killer Mike today. That was beautiful. Sean, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. Take care. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.